Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are unpacking the escalating standoff between the United States and Iran. And look, this isn't just some regional border dispute. It's a conflict that is literally shaking up global markets, international security, and honestly, rewriting diplomatic playbooks. Today, we're going to break down the sheer financial scale of this conflict, the intense standoff that's currently taking place, and how a crucial diplomatic trip to Asia might just be the wild card nobody really saw coming.
Take a look at that number. $29 billion. That is a massive disclosure straight from the headquarters of the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. They've confirmed that this staggering amount has already been spent on the conflict with Iran. When a figure that large hits the public record, it totally shifts the conversation. The rising costs of this war have immediately triggered some really intense scrutiny, and it's leading the U.S. Congress to directly question the strategy currently being used by the Trump administration.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The cost of the Middle East war. 2. The U.S. and Iran's conditions. 3. Nuclear war threats. 4. Trump's crucial China visit. And 5. What happens next?
All right, jumping into Section 1, Cost of the Middle East War, the financial toll.
You know, wars aren't just fought with military hardware. They're fought with national treasuries. And that $29 billion price tag, it's throwing up massive red flags in Congress. Lawmakers are demanding to know what the ultimate endgame is here. They're asking the really tough questions about whether this strategy is even sustainable. Like, how long can this level of spending continue, and what exact outcome justifies this kind of massive capital output?
But in direct contrast to those congressional concerns, President Trump is offering a vastly different economic forecast. He is actually predicting what he calls an impending golden era for the U.S. Based on his statements, he believes this war will not last long at all, and because it's going to be short, he's predicting a massive drop in oil prices, which would then trigger a huge stock market boom and lead to a significant decrease in inflation. This really matters to us because these exact metrics, oil prices and inflation, are what impact our daily cost of living.
Moving on to Section 2. U.S. and Iran's conditions, the standoff.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how they're communicating. Iran actually sent their proposal to the U.S. via intermediaries from Pakistan. Let's break down Iran's side of the table first. They're demanding compensation for war damages, recognition of their sovereignty over the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, an immediate end to the U.S. naval blockade and sanctions, and lifting the ban on Iranian oil sales. On the flip side, the U.S. demands are completely different. The U.S. insists Iran has to halt all military action first. Only after that happens can talks about Iran's nuclear program even begin, and the U.S. requires Iran to explicitly state they have zero desire to build nuclear weapons. As you can see, the gap between these two nations is just immense.
Because of that huge gap, we are looking at a complete diplomatic deadlock right now. Neither side is budging an inch. Iran has outright rejected the U.S. terms, and in response, President Trump completely dismissed Iran's proposal, actually referring to their list of demands publicly as garbage. So basically, all diplomatic channels based on these conditions are frozen solid. Which brings us to Section 3, Nuclear War Threats, Escalation.
And you know, when diplomacy freezes, the rhetoric really heats up. The threats on the table right now are severe. Iran has warned that if the U.S. or Israel attacks again, they will, quote, answer an atom bomb with an atom bomb, and they threaten to enrich uranium up to 90%. Conversely, President Trump is asserting absolute military dominance, saying about Iran's forces that their military is gone, wiped out. Both sides are just leaning into this absolute maximum pressure rhetoric.
So, with the U.S. and Iran at a complete standstill, and the rhetoric reaching literal nuclear levels, a massive question pops up on the global stage. Will a third party step in? Specifically, will China act as a mediator in this Middle East crisis? Let's pivot for a second and look at how the East factors into this whole equation.
Section 4. Trump's crucial China visit, the diplomatic wild card.
Right in the thick of this intense Middle East crisis, President Trump has arrived in Beijing. He's there for a highly anticipated 3-day visit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. And while this is technically just a bilateral meeting between the U.S. and China, make no mistake, the entire international community is watching this closely. Everyone wants to see exactly how this volatile situation with Iran is going to factor into discussions between these two superpowers.
And the agenda for this meeting? It is packed and incredibly complex. The official talks between the US and China are set to cover some major economic and technological battlegrounds. They're discussing ongoing trade tariffs, the rapidly advancing field of AI technology, the global supply of rare minerals, and the specifics of US arms sales. It is a really dense, multifaceted agenda that could quite honestly define global economics for the next decade.
So the crucial point is this. Even with the world watching to see if China will step in to help negotiate peace in the Middle East, President Trump made his position crystal clear before the trip. His stance on mediation, no help needed. He explicitly stated that America will handle the situation with Iran entirely on its own, sending a strong signal that he does not view Chinese mediation as necessary to resolve this standoff.
Finally, Section 5. What happens next?
So with billions already spent, stalled demands, nuclear threats, and a superpower summit happening right now, there is still another layer to this narrative. Despite the heavy public rhetoric and that seemingly insurmountable deadlock we looked at earlier, President Trump has actually publicly claimed that he is in the process of making a good deal. And what's interesting is he asserts this deal will ultimately benefit not just the American people, but the Iranian people as well. It kind of suggests that behind the scenes there's some confidence that a favorable resolution is actually achievable. All of this just brilliantly illustrates how interconnected our modern world really is, doesn't it? It leaves us with a vital question to think about as these events unfold. Will these high-stakes US-China talks in Beijing ultimately serve to stabilize the global economy, and by doing so, indirectly cool down the burning conflict in the Middle East? The price of oil, the rate of global inflation, and international security are all basically hanging in the balance, waiting on the outcome of these intersecting diplomatic moves. Keep your eyes on these developments, for sure, because they are going to shape the geopolitical landscape for years to come. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.